This is the Drew and Me podcast with Chris Kay.
I wasn't as confident as Chip Gantry was when he joined in Harmony. I thought I watched that episode. I was that can't be beaten, so I didn't bother trying.
Yeah, so Chris is a local Philadelphia comedian and lawyer.
Fortunately, the second part.
So, Chris, if we're talking movies, do you have a movie that you could watch tomorrow? You could watch it next week. You could watch it in like 2 weeks.
And I could quote probably every line to you, that I could watch it from the middle. Yeah, so my absolute favorite movie of all time is definitely Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
It's an excellent choice. It's an excellent
You
choice,
know,
Chris.
for some reason, when I was growing up at my grandmother's house, which is where all the kids went like after school, we'd wait for our parents to get off work. For some reason, we had a videotape, a VHS, that had Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but it also had, but the first movie on the VHS was The Journey of Natty Gann. No one asked for The Journey of Natty Gann. No one ever watched The Journey of Natty Gann, but I did wear out half of that videotape growing up.
Oh man, nice. Yeah, um, probably watched Ferris Bueller for the first time when I was like 10 or 11. Just kind of like found it, and like I have an older sister, so Ferris Bueller was not the first John Hughes movie that was watched in our house. Like I'd seen Pretty in Pink, I'd seen 16 Candles, but honestly, like when you watch Ferris Bueller is just kind of in its own category. Just I feel like that it's that large a movie.
Well, it's kind of like a comedic buddy movie and kind of like a heist movie. I mean, they're not really heisting anything, but it's the same idea. And then I think so growing up, of course, everybody thinks they're Ferris because like that's the cool
Yeah.
guy. So I
Yeah.
always thought I identified with Ferris Bueller, the main character. What I realized as I got older, especially in the last few years, is that I was actually Cameron. Like I was the nerdy goody two shoes, afraid to break the rules. So I identified with that movie, not even realizing why I did identify with it. But he's one of my favorite characters. And actually, I don't know. Let's see. I don't know if I can get it on camera, but I have a tattoo of Cameron from Ferris Bueller on the back of my
Oh,
calf
all right.
that I got last year
Nice.
in Chicago. So yeah, I love
Nice.
that movie. Uh, I feel like a lot of comedic movies especially have slow spots, like when they inevitably develop the romantic relationship or whatever. There's always a slow spot. But like the slowest point in Ferris Bueller is one of the more poignant points. Like when they're in that museum staring at the Seurat painting, it's one of the most moving parts of the movie. And it's also the slowest, but I don't know. I just think the pace of the movie, the way it's written, I just love every bit of it. And then they're just like laugh out loud when Jeannie Bueller kicks Edward R. Rooney in the face in her kitchen. Like that's a laugh out loud moment. There are many. I couldn't say enough about it. I just love that movie. It's my favorite.
Y- Yeah, I agree that there's not like really a slow moment in the movie. Like there's not really a spot where you're like, oh man, like can they get to the end already? Because I feel like it's just strong throughout, and like what you really see in this movie is what you were saying before, that it's a great comedy and that there's a lot of things that happen. Like John Hughes, he does a lot of like he does a lot of a lot of comic set pieces in the movie. Like there's like the scene where yeah, the two valets like they take the car for a spin and like stuff like that. And then when um the part when Principal Rooney he calls Sloane and he gets Cameron, and then when they're at the restaurant and they have to fool the maitre d', and then when they're in Chicago and yeah, they do the whole like twist and shout thing. Like it's like there's so many set pieces and like
That's a good point. There,
they just flow and they
even
feel
with
like they
those
come
set,
out of nowhere almost.
but even with those set pieces, it does. It feels like I don't feel like it doesn't take you out of the movie. It doesn't
No, no,
like
no,
it doesn't become a musical. I don't know. It works for some
no.
reason.
Yeah. No, like it all works. And it's like it's just like, just like choose a kid. The kid's Ferris Bueller. He just decides he doesn't want to go to school and he has his day off. So he's just having like a tremendous day off. He gets to go to a Cubs game. He catches a ball. So
I, and you didn't ask for it, but a close second for favorite movie would be My Cousin Vinny. That's another movie I
awesome.
can watch anytime.
So funny. Oh
And
man.
here, and the thing is, I especially obviously since graduating law school, it's difficult to watch legal movies, even comedies, because they're usually so off. They just don't know how the legal system works. I'll tell you that my cousin Vinny legitimately does not get anything wrong with the process.
Mm.
There's nothing that I would say, that could never happen in a court or that could never happen in a case.
Yeah.
I mean, they
No,
push things a little bit.
yeah. Yeah, no. So with my cousin Vinny, on that one, I watched the audio commentary, and the director said they really tried to get it right. So the director, Jonathan Lynn, he really tried to get like the legal process right, and like the arraignment, and then like the trial, and like they really worked on it. And like, yeah, like it does feel like you're in a courtroom and they're doing like the legal process. Whereas like,
There's so many times
so
that if you
yeah.
kind of understand, if you understand the way a court case works, sometimes, especially criminal law, there are a lot of
Yeah.
things that as a lawyer, when you watch, you're like, oof, I just can't. It just that doesn't like that's not that wouldn't happen, and that's a key plot point. But with my yeah, and the humor, obviously, the comedy of My Cousin Vinny is fantastic. But
Oh,
the
it's so
fact that
funny.
uh, they kept it realistic was actually really pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I think they did like an excellent job with that. So if you had to compare it to another legal movie like Jim Carrey in Liar Liar, do you think My Cousin Vinny's more realistic than Liar Liar?
Well, and I think it's been a while since I've seen Liar Liar, but as far as I remember, it didn't really focus on there wasn't the legal process really wasn't
No,
on
no.
display. It was a hearing here or something. But what I will say is, yeah, it's and that's not a movie I think where and that faithfulness to the process would have made it any better. I think they did a fine job. It wasn't really being a lawyer was just was just a fun way to play with words and kind of get him into good situations. But I think I think it was it's pretty ingenious how they were able to not only stay within the actual legal framework and how the system works, but then make that funny without ruining, without leaning on plot points that just could never happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'd say comparatively, like with Ferris Bueller and My Cousin Vinny, you have such great characters in Ferris and Vinny because with My Cousin Vinny, he's interesting. So the story around Vinny because he's the one who gets, the kid off because he makes such a compelling argument. So he makes a good argument in the courtroom and he gets the kid off and then there's like the subplot with his girlfriend, like they're engaged, are they actually going to get married and stuff like that. So that's interesting too. But like he does some real detective work and he says like you can't fool me. You, you, there's no one who pulls the wool over an eyes of a Gambini or something like that. So like you really get into his psyche and I feel like it's really like a good Vinny movie. And
He's a believable character, very
yes,
believable.
absolutely. I believe if I walked down the street and I saw this guy, this is a real guy, and I feel like if he's given the right case, he'd be able to help.
And I think there's a message in that movie that maybe is a little too deep for a comedy movie, but I think the real message about the legal system in that movie is that we make the system inaccessible. That, this guy, based on logic, who does not know the process, which is correct. If you just pass the bar, you have no idea how a regular courtroom works. You either go to work for a firm that teaches you or you go watch court. That's it. Um, and the formalities that the legal process puts up in front of the average citizen makes the system inaccessible, and it is, because the more money you have, the easier it is, and that's not the way it should work. But that's getting a little heavy for my cousin Vinny. But I think they get that message across in a light way.
Oh man. Yeah. I really do enjoy the movie and like the comedy, it just works every time and the juxtaposition between him and the judge, like the real like he's completely the opposite of the judge who's this like old prestigious judge from Alabama and he's this hotshot kid from New York. So
Yeah, it's and and he wins him over. At the
yeah,
end of the case, the judge
yes.
dismisses the charge. He wins him over. It's a really
Yeah.
and in a realistic way too. Like that's exactly how a judge would behave too. Like, and that's a lenient judge. Like there are some judges that are just such a-holes. They'll do, they'll. No, I've never been held in contempt. Trust me, that would be really bad. But the way they'll talk to you, the way they'll address you, the way they'll treat you as if you are not as intelligent than them, even though they have no idea, just because they're a judge. That's very real too.
Mm. Yeah. Like I feel like that detail I really liked. And it was like with Vinny, it's like you have to become one of us. Like we're
Yeah,
not going to adapt to you. You have to adapt to the system. The trial's in Alabama, so you
yeah.
have to do the way, like you have to do things the way we do it here. Um, Obviously, like they get really into the way he dresses and stuff like that, and like he doesn't know to wear a suit to the trial and stuff like that. Yeah. Um, okay. So for movies, we got Ferris Bueller and My Cousin Vinny. How about
We'll teeter it
shows?
out in
Is
a
there
second.
like a TV show you really like?
I'm a huge fan of The Office, but that seems like an easy answer. Um,
No,
growing
like
up,
yeah.
I was gonna say, but growing up, because maybe this is a better answer because it really influenced uh,
Mm.
my love of comedy. Was Saturday Night Live. I loved staying up and watching it
Oh, okay.
before the age of DVR, when you had to
Yeah.
catch it when it was on. That was like a real treat for a kid. And I thought that the fake commercial writing, the parody commercial writing, I was my favorite thing. And I still love doing that. I still do that on my own podcast. And I really like that influenced a lot about the way that I view comedy, and it really,
Mm,
yeah, I love that. So that's probably the one. And I don't. The problem is I don't watch it anymore just because it's, I don't know, it feels different. But growing like that, Saturday Night Live through like the '90s were, all from the beginning through the '90s were some of my favorite shows.
yeah. Um, that's what I keep hearing from people. They said like the 90s SNL is the way to go. And like everyone says like, you have Sandler, you have Phil Hartman, you have you have John Lovitz. So they said like just a really, really strong cast kind of delivered it, and it was when, yeah, and you also had like Chris Farley, and I feel like it was still run by Lorne Michaels, even though I thought in the 2000s when Tina Fey took over, I thought it was still pretty fresh.
Well, the thing is, I don't dislike it today. If I watch an episode today, I enjoy it. It's just it's not as kind of appointment, and I think that's what the same with everything with shows. Just because since they're always available, I kind of never watch them now. Like because
Okay.
part of the fun of Saturday Night Live was the shared experience. Like you'd come in, on Monday and talk to friends about what you saw, or
Oh yeah.
maybe Sunday afternoon you were hanging out, and that was like something you talked about because there were only so many sources of entertainment, so you kind of bonded around that and interacted and developed a sense of humor with your friends with that. And we don't have this as many of those shared experiences. That's why shows is a harder answer for me. Like there's a lot of that I love. The Wire is one of my favorites of all time, but like all of them are older because I just don't watch things anymore since there's no shared experience with that.
Yeah, I totally get it. It's like, so when it was the finale of Seinfeld, like the teacher at school, they asked, "Do you have a favorite character? Can you say something philosophical about the show?" Like the end of Seinfeld was like really significant. So
Yeah.
it's like when a lot of these big shows wrapped or they had like big episodes, you're right. It was like something to talk about at the water cooler the next day or something, like just like really exciting stuff. And I have a friend and he said like on principle he had to watch Game of Thrones
Yeah.
uh because people were going to be talking about it the next day.
And as dumb as it is, remember Tiger King? Like what a dumb fucking
Yeah,
what a dumb
yeah.
friggin' show that is. Like so stupid. But everybody watched it. So it didn't matter
Yeah.
what the show was. We were having that shared experience that you could make fun of the characters or talk about things you liked, and it was something that got you talking with other people instead of just staring at a screen more. And we just don't have those events as much because media is just everywhere and constant. And sure, maybe other than a sporting event, I might watch the same show as you, but I might watch it 3 days later, or I might binge it all in a weekend. And you're 4 episodes, it takes away from that experience. That's why, like Survivor, another dumb show, but especially in the beginning, it was such an experience because everybody's, rooting for their, and it's
Yeah.
it's in real time, and there was no way to watch it ahead of time, and like it
Yeah.
was appointment viewing. You planned your nights around when Survivor was going to be on, and I don't know if people still do that, but I imagine you could just watch it later on demand.
Yeah. The cool thing about Survivor, I feel like it has so much crossover appeal to different demographics. I feel like you could be like 90 and watch it, or you could be like very young, like 6 or 7, and as a 6 or 7 year old, you could like love the challenges. So you like
Right,
just
right.
kind of you can get into it for the challenges and not really the social game because I remember watching it as like a 9 or 10 year old and thinking the challenge is really interesting. And then like talking to my dad about it, he was like, that one of the people on the show is a convicted felon, right? And he was not talking about Hatch, the guy who won, who cheated on his taxes. He wasn't talking about Richard. He was talking about the woman who came in second, who had who had a stolen credit card.
Jeez.
Yeah. So her name was Kelly, and she would play later in the show. Um, but yeah, it's like you can get into it from like those storylines, or like you like the challenges, or like the people on the show are like you think they're really attractive or something. So like it's a show that has a lot of appeal. Yeah. Um, cool. So I just want to talk about The Office for a second because you brought it up
Oh
initially.
yeah.
So I have a friend who's a music teacher who he teaches middle school, and he says Gen Z does not like The Office because they think it's stupid, and for whatever reason, they don't get it. So, y-
My look, I don't know if that's true, but I have a 14-year-old daughter who is obsessed with the show and has watched it more than me and watches the extended like super fan episodes. And I remember, I mean, she loved it from the first time she saw it, and we probably let her watch it way too young. But I remember when she was like 10 or 11, she competed online in like a an office trivia competition, and there were like adults in this thing, and she won the damn thing. Like,
oh,
so it
wow.
appeals to some, and especially it's funny. I think she likes the later episodes more than I do, like the
Really?
ones after Michael. Like I don't even watch those anymore. I just kind of
Like,
skip
yeah,
those
I
and
think like
go to, you know.
seasons like the early episodes, like seasons like like 2 and 3, I think are the strongest seasons of The Office for sure.
I've made the argument that season two is maybe the best sitcom
Mm,
season. That I mean, it's just and almost every episode is standalone, and they're brilliantly written. Like I loved every one of those. And it's also like it's funny because if you watch season one, which was largely just a rewrite of the British series, and then
mm,
you watch season two, you see the show begin to take its own personality and not just a copy of the British show. And Michael is totally different. He goes from this like skeezy, gross, like businessman to like this pathetic, sad sack businessman. It's a different, but it's a change that if he doesn't make that change, I don't think the show is as successful. At least it doesn't last as long. I think it burns hot and it's over. But that's season two
yeah.
where you see how naive he is and vulnerable he is. Like I think I think those are the two and three are just brilliant.
Yeah, and there's such good story building and like for plot lines, like are Jim and Pam gonna get together? And I feel like that they developed that a lot more in season 2. And even on the cruise, Jim talks to Michael, and Michael says like her and Roy aren't married yet, so you should still pursue that. So I feel like the episodes are really funny, but the Jim and Pam storyline is like one of the strongest that goes through. So you have characters that you can like support and that you can get behind and that like you want to see them do well. But in terms of individual episodes, I think that like in season 2, yeah, I totally agree. Like it has some real standouts. Like the off it's Olympics is hilarious. Like Office Olympics is great. They also have
University
the
Day.
yup.
I love that
That's
episode.
great. And they have yeah, the Christmas episode, the Secret Santa is excellent.
I mean, it's yeah. Those two seasons, you're right. The writing is so tight. It just yeah, and I think and that's the things that if I have criticisms for the show, they all come from the fact that they spread it out too long. You know, they let it go 3 seasons too long. So you develop the Jim and Pam relationship too long before they got together because if the series goes long enough, they have to get together. It just has to happen. It always does. Cheers, it happened. You know, how many times did it happen on Cheers? Like 4 times. You know, it just you can't keep that tension forever, or else it gets really weird. So those are the only criticisms I really have, and I don't mind the episode. Like I don't mind the late seasons without Michael. I think they're still funny. I think they get too far from the plot, and the
Yeah.
episodes with Michael are so funny that it's hard for me not to
Nice.
just start back over.
Oh
I
yeah.
usually just start at season 2.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think season two is a great place to start, and season seven is a good place to end. But I honestly think of it as a different show when they brought on the when they brought on the new manager, the Robert California character. Like I feel like when they brought him on, it kind of like changed the whole like composition of the show and like the joke structure and stuff like that.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Nice. Cool. So Chris, in terms of music, do you have a favorite song?
I don't know if I can figure out what it is, but I do. I'm a huge fan of music. And I think that there's two questions for me because I love live music so much. So the question would be, what's my favorite recorded song and what's my favorite live song? Because I think they're probably different. Um, and I think they probably change. At least my favorite recorded song probably changes all the time. I think I'm trying to think of like the song that I just can't, that I won't skip. Um, I'm a huge fan of the band Veruca Salt. Um,
Great. Awesome.
and you know, okay, if I were going to give you my favorite recorded song, it's actually a live recording, so I'm breaking my own rules. But Life After Wartime or Life During Wartime by Talking Heads is my just I think it's just a brilliant piece of music. And I think the recorded version, the live version, which they have released on a record, is brilliant. But I think the song is just, and it's so poignant for our times too. I love that song. And look, if Talking Heads were still together, it would probably would be my favorite song to see, you know, performed live as well. Um,
Okay.
but my favorite live song, I am a huge fan of the band Pearl Jam. If you look behind me, there's a bunch of Pearl Jam stuff on my wall. I've seen them 40 times. Um, and I the song the song Given to Fly, performed live by Pearl Jam, might be my favorite live song. I
Mm.
really like it's hard for me to give those answers because I listen to like I love music. I really do. It's there it's almost there's never a time when I don't have music playing if I'm not, you know, watching something or you know, every minute that I'm working. I love going to shows around here. Um, I love there's a lot of great local bands that I follow. So it's a tough question, but I love Talking Heads, and I think that song Life During Wartime is just it's brilliant. And I love seeing Pearl Jam live. And Given to Fly is just one of my favorites.
Nice. So, Chris, you said you've seen Pearl Jam 40 times. How many times have you seen uh how many times have you seen uh, Temple of the Dog?
Didn't get to the Temple of the Dog show when they had the reunion here, so that's a 0 times. And unfortunately, with Chris Cornell gone, that will remain zero
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
That album is brilliant. Oh God, that album is so good. That from beginning to end. Because everybody knows Hunger Strike from that Temple of the Dog album.
Oh yeah, it
If you were
sounds
existing in the
yeah, it sounds
90s, you
awesome.
knew that song.
Yeah.
But the whole album Temple of the Dog is so good. It's essentially a super group. It's essentially Pearl Jam of today combined with Chris Cornell. That's what it was because at the time, and now Matt Cameron has actually left Pearl Jam. I just don't think he wants to perform anymore. But at the time, Matt Cameron was playing for Soundgarden, and he ended up drumming for Pearl Jam. So the lineup for Temple of the Dog was Mike McCready and Stone Gossard, who ended up in Pearl Jam, Chris Cornell of Soundgarden, Matt Cameron of Soundgarden, and then Eddie Vedder. I mean, that it's pretty incredible. I wish I had gotten to that damn reunion show. I'll tell you that much.
Um, yeah, so for the reunion,
I did.
I was able to talk to someone who went, and they said Chris Cornell was there, but they said Eddie Vedder was not there, but that Chris Cornell sang the Eddie Vedder parts.
I lost you for a second there. I think we had a bad connection, so I missed the last
Oh,
thing that you
no,
said.
no, no, it's okay. So like Chris Cornell, he was there, but Eddie Vedder did not show up for the reunion show. So yeah, they had to. So they just had to have. Oh, Chris Cornell do the Eddie Vedder parts.
Okay, yeah, yeah. And I knew that he was, yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like Eddie couldn't sing those high Chris Cornell parts too. So like whenever they performed, and they did perform it several times live. Whenever Pearl Jam performed um, Hunger Strike, they would usually have a woman perform the Chris Cornell portion. So like um, I saw it with oh, what's her name? Oh, I can't remember the name from Slater Kinney performed the Chris Cornell part.
Oh,
Um, who else did I? So because I saw a lot of great bands play with Pearl. I saw Slater Kinney, L7, Neil Young,
nice,
Iggy Pop,
awesome.
like all of these just because they were opening for Pearl Jam. But the best show that I ever saw was well there were two. I this thing over my shoulder is a plaque that was on the open bar that night. I saw Pearl Jam at the Apollo. It was
Oh, cool.
it seats 1,500 people. And it was a free show that everyone who got tickets had won them through Sirius XM radio. And a friend of mine just got lucky and won tickets and invited me to go. So like the day of, we didn't even know where our seats were. We just were on a list and we showed up. I ended up in the fourth row, like right. It was incredible. And like I said, seeing Pearl Jam in a place that seats 1,500, it was just after that happened, I was like, I don't think I can ever go see a show again. Like, I don't know what to do because that was just so incredible. How am I going to beat that? And then I was like, you know what would be fun? I'll take my daughters because they've never seen them. So I took them to the last time Pearl Jam played in Philly. And that show was the best set list and the best performance I've ever seen. And like I said, I've seen them 40 times. They played for 40 minutes after the Wachovia Center, whatever the hell it's called, the Xfinity Center or whatever, after they turned up the lights. Like they were done. They played past 11 o'clock. Like the band, like they must have paid a fortune in fines for it, but it was the most incredible show. Just, and I said to my daughters after, I was like, you're never going to see a show like that again. And they kind of could feel it because the energy was so cool.
Yeah, no, have not seen Pearl Jam live, but I heard like they love the fans so much. Like they
Oh
absolutely
yeah.
love their fans, and they'll have fans choose the set list for like certain shows and like stuff like that. So it's really cool.
A lot of cool. Yeah, they're really good engaging with their fans. And one thing that I love that they do is they always hold back a bunch of tickets till the day of the show to try to avoid scalping and they or whatever third party ticket sales. And then I remember what they did for the one tour is your tickets were not resellable. You could sell them back to Ticketmaster at face value if you wanted to, and they would resell them at face value, but you could not sell them. It was tied to your name, so you could not sell them for an increased price. But then again, the four tickets that I bought cost $700, so it wasn't exactly cheap to begin with. And that's killing. Like that's the thing. Like, is I remember going to see them and paying $24 for a ticket. And then to pay 700 for four tickets and like the mid level is brutal.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like the Pro Jam's like legendary now though. I feel like they're like this like terrific like live band, and like they have a lot of albums, and like to their credit, like the newer music and albums they come out with are still very good.
Well, I really enjoy it. I don't. They're different. It's different eras, but the same kind of stuff behind it. Um, yeah, I think it also helps that like Eddie Vedder's just not a bad guy. It seems like a pretty good dude. All accounts are that he's a
Yeah,
good dude, and
yeah,
um, the band has never been in like real trouble. There's never been any controversies. They just seem like they're, yeah, I don't know, seem like a lot of fun. I actually back in I think it would have been 2001. I saw them play in Vegas.
oh
Their first show was in 1991, and this show was on the 10th anniversary of the first show that they had ever played. So of course, I had to go. And it was it was a great show, first of all. But then after the show, I found out where the after party was. So I went over to the MGM or the Mandalay Bay Casino, which I knew the band was going to be there. I met all the band as they came back in from the show for their after party. And the first thing I'll tell you is like Eddie Vedder is like this tall. The man is
yeah,
petite. He's tiny.
yeah,
Uh, but also Mike McCready went to play blackjack, and I sat down and played $25 blackjack at the same table with Mike McCready for a little while. So
that's
that's my
awesome,
claim
dude.
to fame.
Nice, nice. Yeah, um, there's a great movie in the '90s that has Pearl Jam actually in the movie. Have you seen the Cameron Crowe movie? Uh, um, uh, it's
You
called
froze up for me a second there.
oh, so the Cameron Crowe movie, it's called uh Singles.
I love that movie. Absolutely love that movie. Uh,
Awesome.
where where Pearl Jam becomes the band Citizen Dick. Um,
Yes. Yes.
that's I love that movie. And L7 is in that movie, I believe. And there's a bunch of
Oh,
different
really?
there's a bunch of cameos from Seattle. There are a ton of cameos from Seattle musicians in that movie.
Oh,
It's
oh,
oh, I
it's
love that movie.
great.
Yeah. And the soundtrack is just amazing.
Yeah. Like I feel like there's no other movie that's captured the grunge scene like that movie, like Singles. Like you
Yeah.
feel like you're there in Seattle. It's unbelievable how well they did it.
I I think like a cool thing about that movie is it reminds you that these bands like Pearl Jam played their first show at a place called the Off Ramp in Seattle. Like this, just a bar club. It's just like there are a dozen places in Philly just like it. And you've got those rock bands in Philly working and like just like open mic comics, they're playing shows all the time, trying to get people to see them. And there's so much talent locally. I love going to local shows. Like I'm wearing this is a t-shirt from a local band, Gunshy Butterfly. Now I'm a little bit biased because it's my girlfriend's band, but like there's so many good local bands. There's so many good acts out there to see. And I think the live music experience is something just totally different from listening to music on Spotify or wherever.